Do narcissists grieve? Or am I the only one who is grieving for so long? What am I grieving about?
Losing someone or something we cared deeply for often plunges us into profound grief. We may struggle to make sense of the loss, cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, and sadness before reaching some semblance of acceptance. But what if the loss involves a narcissistic abuser who harmed us? Do they grieve the broken bond like we do? Or are we left grieving alone for far longer, confused by what exactly we've lost? I'll explore the narcissist's capacity for grief and the unique aspects that complicate healing for their victims. Refer back to this video when you feel your attachment grief taking over or sense you might relapse into the narcissist's grip once more. By the end, you'll better grasp why you feel so much loss and powerlessness to resist. Please share in the comments what is stopping you from moving on, no matter how much harm was done. If you feel hooked and can't understand your attraction, I highly recommend watching this video, Why It's So Hard to Leave a Narcissistic Relationship, Telltale, What to Do. Link is in description below. Plus, if you feel you must talk to a counselor and get coaching to move on, you can email us describing your situation, then click the book appointment link in the profile and schedule a free 30-minute initial session to discuss your issues. Free 30-minute sessions are only available until January 15th, 2024. Or you can simply WhatsApp us directly seeking a free intro session. Now let's understand.
The narcissist's detached grief.
When narcissists lose a person or source of supply, they do experience a self-centered grief. But it often manifests as rage over losing an object that provided them value rather than sadness over the relationship itself. They may denounce the traitorous person who abandoned them, denying any flaws of their own. Or they might dismiss the loss entirely with callous indifference, deeming the person expendable. Their entitled mentality distorts grieving into either vengeful fury or cold apathy at the inconvenience. The narcissist lacks empathy and emotional depth to genuinely mourn the intimacy lost between two people. With their fragile egos, intense feelings also expose vulnerability that terrifies them. So they detach from the pain through denial or anger, avoiding deeper heartbreak. Sadly, this prevents them from growth.
The victim's confusing grief.
Meanwhile, the victim grieves not only the fantasy of what they hoped the relationship could become, but the realization it was false all along. It's grieving for one's own lost time, effort, and self-worth invested against increasing mistreatment. The sadness comes from grieving parts of oneself lost in the manipulation. This grief often bewilders us with its intensity and duration. Feelings of shame, cognitive dissonance, and trauma bonds further muddle the process. Victims may wonder, if the relationship was so unhealthy, why does letting go hurt so much? Why can't I move on quickly like the narcissist did? The complex attachment formed through intermittent abuse explains the confusing mix of grief and relief.
Step 1. The devastation of discard.
Nothing prepares you for the devastation of a narcissist unexpectedly severing ties after longing for their affection. It's an emotional neutron bomb obliterating your inner landscape. Their sudden absence from your life sparks a painful disorientation, leaving you grasping for an anchor in a sea of confusion. The cognitive dissonance intensifies this denial. Though the relationship diminished your self-worth through callous cruelty, trauma bonds still cling to the scraps of positivity that kept you trapped. You find yourself inexplicably craving more degradation, just to regain some semblance of twisted normalcy. Exiting the warped worldview required adopting the narcissist's perspective just to survive. But now, their vanishing act ejects you straight into open-air freefall. When your reality depended on someone incapable of authentic reciprocation, their disappearance makes you question reality altogether.
Step 2. The all-consuming quest to understand.
Emotionally shipwrecked in this aftermath, you channel everything into finding answers. You voraciously consume any resource related to narcissistic abuse, searching for confirmation that it wasn't just you. Videos and articles become a lifeline. Finally, here are people articulating this chaotic experience you struggle to convey. Each revelation lands like a gut punch, but also with cathartic release. Bit by bit, the fuzziness clarifies into sharp focus. Repeated cycles of idealization and devaluation. Discarded like trash when someone shinier bubbles up. zero empathy for your suffering as they quickly replace you. The manipulative tactics have names now. The bewildering behavior's a diagnosis. Just grasping the narcissist's all-consuming inner void brings pity for their tragedy, but mostly sorrow for your stolen years, contorting yourself to fill that void. You mourn the willing, creative, optimistic person who entered this mess. What emerged feels mangled almost beyond recognition.
Step 3. The weight of waking up.
Comprehending the abuse sparks overwhelming crush of emotions: anger, disbelief, hurt, regret, shame. You reject this reality yet also too aware, a heartbroken bystander, watching your disemboweled dreams slowly die off. You reel at the narcissist's sheer audacity to demand love after backstabbing betrayals. Didn't the bliss and agony we weathered together leave any lasting imprint? But the fog lifts. For them, you functioned as a prop, not a person. They felt nothing. It's impossible to overstate the mental anguish of seeing someone's false self shatter, revealing the stranger behind the sweet words and smiles. But more agonizing is beholding your own illusion drift away, recognizing you poured passion and devotion into a one-sided fantasy. Your lone starring role, an emotionally bankrupt supporting actor breezing through their latest conquest.
Step 4. Dulled emotions yet heightened sorrow.
Years subjected to crazy-making chaos blunts emotions. You automatically clamp down on vulnerability, but phasing out feelings for preservation also numbs your capacity to process complex grief. So the sadness appears relegated to numb background noise, until erupting at unexpected moments with eye-welling potency, temporarily overriding emotional inertia. Triggers like reminiscing about plans made under false pretenses ambush you. Quelling the surge quickly returns an outward veneer of managing all right, but inwardly sorrow simmers. Cognitive awareness doesn't instantly restore emotional equilibrium. Understanding why manipulation hurt so badly doesn't itself mitigate the damage done. So you carry heightened sorrow lightly anesthetized by survival adaptations, struggling between denial and acceptance.
Step 5. When support systems don't understand.
Irrational as it seems even to you, the NPD abuser's absence leaves aching emptiness amid the anger. Seeking support from friends and family, you instead receive well-intended advice urging quick recovery now freed from the toxic relationship. Their misunderstanding implicitly faults you for not being happier. This isolates you within the grief, unable to convey its full shape to compatriots expecting clear relief. They mistake lingering sadness as secret pining for the narcissist and urge healthier forward focus. So you confide less to avoid accusations of self-sabotaging reconciliation hopes still clinging to mental hijacker. Confused, you wonder if something is fundamentally flawed within to still mourn this loss. The narcissist swiftly exed you out while you stew in bittersweet agony for years. Their disorder disabled reciprocation, yet you somehow feel betrayed. Intellectually, the amicable split should signal positive growth. Your enduring melancholy seems irrational but undeniable.
Step 6. Recognizing external invalidation of grief.
Society commonly invalidates grief lacking conspicuous signposts like death. Friends may frame the relationship as so unhealthy total separation should elicit happiness. Their well-meant advice to move on quickly implies lingering sadness is voluntary self-torture about someone undeserving. This perpetuates self-blame and doubts about your own rationality for grieving. In truth, ending any intimate bond causes grief. Even without abuse, human psyche resists abrupt ruptures. Disordered partners can stir especially complex feelings. You must compassionately validate your own mourning. The relationship meant something very real to you even if fabricated by a manipulator. Your investment generated profound hopes. Losing those merits grief. Everyone's process is unique. Compare yours only to your authentic healing pace.
Step 7. Processing the non-linear 5 stages.
The oft-cited 5 emotional stages of grief rarely proceed tidily from denial, anger, and bargaining towards acceptance. But narcissistic relationships convolute these stages exponentially. Sudden ghosting short-circuits natural order. Idealized reconciliation hopes persist long after admitting it was fiction. Anger intermingles with sadness and relief. Mental loopbacks through all stages are common, reminiscent mementos plummet you back to denial's darkest days until re-reaching angry acceptance again. Unlike linear grieving for death's unambiguous finality, abandoning chronic ambiguity dredges up turbulent complexity at each life stage anew. It demands re-grieving whenever greater understanding crystallizes. For survivors, non-linearity manifests through sudden setbacks to healing after periods of optimism and empowerment. One week you feel stronger, rediscovering self-purpose. The next curls up tightly, resenting their total absence from your world, upended by lies. Be patient with circular grief's repetitive lesson plan.
Step 8. The necessary spiritual dimensions.
Grieving narcissistic abuse often sparks an identity crisis regarding your deepest values around relationships, what you considered loving behavior, even your beliefs about human nature itself. Losing faith can be profoundly devastating for spiritual people whose worldviews anchor in believing things happen for a reason, humanity's innate goodness, ethical universal justice. Reconciling tragedy with these assumptions requires reflecting on life's true randomness and rejecting simplistic binaries of good people versus evil villains. To grieve constructively often requires spiritual shift towards acceptance, dismantling rigid assumptions through empirical evidence emotional scars provide. It opens space for new philosophical foundations, better integrating harsh realities like the indefensible suffering undeservedly inflicted by disordered personalities. Their mindless malevolence erodes idealism, yet the experience offers opportunity to forge sturdier, nuanced principles about inhabiting a world with unpreventable pain.
Step 9. Releasing toxins through active grieving.
Grief acknowledged and expressed releases its toxins to open space for rising intact. But initially, the sheer enormity of injustice and betrayal endured, while dismissing internal outrage, left rage and pain festering silently into depression's gnarled root system, choking joy's regrowth. Actively engaging grief offers a cleansing, exhaustive fire burn away tangled dead brush and poisonous weeds. The hot adversarial therapy of anger released, tears uncorked, scream unmuted, rents once calcified layers, guarding your vulnerabilities. In quiet aftermath, purged by catharsis, kissing raw earth deformed by erosion, yet still breathing. The first unfurling buds, stretching tentative toward however distant a sun promised commencement. Not conclusion, but inception of reclaimed curiosity reviving the questions its once confident answer.
Step 10. From diminished to expansive identity.
Narcissists diminish targets' identities by restricting self-expression, gaslighting preferences, projecting shameful labels, intercepting independence. Their soul-eroding effect impoverishes consciousness of your attributes and boundaries. Healing these wounds involves consciously recultivating identity from constricted terrain allocated by oppressors to the infinitely wider possibilities residing internally all along. Only by daring to resurrect repressed aspirations through reconnecting with childhood ambitions and talents can you fill voids left by faults finds reflection in abusers' eyes. Grief springs from the lost difference between the vibrant, flourishing future your intrinsic self deeply knows is possible versus the constrained, lesser living leaves. Your wings clipped to accommodate toxins, leaching color slowly from world, once shimmering kaleidoscope, now faded black and white by vampiric drainage. True acceptance means no longer forfeiting full-throated actualization, outgrown through narcissist's narrowing lens. Your most durable redemption wrests self-definition back from the image interlopers who imposed artificial limits. The grief of narcissistic abuse can feel isolating when its depth isn't understood. If you still find yourself longing for the narcissist or struggling through the grief alone, please know you don't have to carry this burden by yourself. This community understands the arduous healing journey ahead. What did you love about the false persona that has kept you emotionally tethered? Opening up supports collective healing, so please comment with your experience when you're ready. If you have questions or continue to struggle with no contact, don't hesitate to reach out so I can offer personalized support through a video or coaching. I want to continue this conversation to bring narcissistic abuse out of the shadows. Your financial contributions make it possible for me to provide these empowering resources, either through donations or becoming a patron. All monetary support goes directly towards creating more content to help survivors rediscover their wings after narcissistic abuse left them grounded for too long. Please subscribe if these videos have brought you comfort, and press the thanks button if they've eased some pain. Your generosity allows me to keep being here for this community. Together, we can help each other stand back up. I believe in you, and I believe your freedom awaits. Now, if you need more support, I highly recommend watching this video, Why It's So Hard to Leave a Narcissistic Relationship, next. The link is in the description below.